you all today, I come to understand that many of you in here are some kind of athlete or have participated in a sport. Whether it's football, basketball, volleyball, or track, we all know what it feels like to win and be accomplished in a sport, even if it's just a one-time thing. I'm pretty sure that every athlete in this room has once thought of what it would be like to one day play for your favorite college, or you have at least thought of how awesome it would be if you can do this one day. Many college athletes go to play sports for their favorite college with high hopes of one day going pro. It turns out to be harder than expected, mainly because these student athletes don't have any money or ways of getting money to pay for the expenses of college. Everyone knows it's hard to buy things without money. You need money, so you can only imagine how hard it is for a student athlete to make it through a semester. For example, LaDante Hinton, he is from Michigan and goes to Providence, Rhode Island. He rarely sees his parents, brothers or sisters, and cannot afford to go over during Christmas break to see his family. His family can't afford to fly or drive to see LaDante play because it's just too much to even try. He barely ever has any money and is never really able to participate in any leisure activities outside of school and sports. The food he does get is from his standing scholarship at PC. But with the Pell Grant Award, LaDante was allowed to be given at the national max $5,730, and the majority of that money he sends to his mom in Michigan. He says the difference between being a student athlete and a regular student is that he and his family actually need the money, and other students basically just want the money. So there is a difference between wanting and needing, and right now, he needs the money. So you can only imagine yourself in his shoes, having to go to college, play sports, and then at the end of the day, have no money to see his family. And they don't have any money to go and see him. It would be hard to go without your family during such an important time of his life. This topic really caught my attention when I realized my older cousins are already going to college, some with athletic scholarships. I started to think of how they would try to pay for the rest of college that wasn't paid for, and how they would pay for other living expenses. While I thought more and more about it, I realized how much more work they would have to put in to pay for everything. I then realized that if I am ever to go to college or any kind of future athletic scholarship, I don't want to have the pain of knowing I'm going to struggle with money and debt. These athletes deserve what they are due for all their hard work put in to make school look good. If they're going to work hard to be successful, then why not pay them for their efforts in doing so? In my thesis, I will explain the average college athlete struggles with money while playing the season, going to school during the day. I will also explain how we can solve this problem through different payment methods. I will explain to you how these athletes are unfairly treated and do not get what is due to them for their hard work. I believe athletes need and deserve some kind of payments because these athletes do deserve to be paid. A very large part of this debate is that players actually need money, but they do not get what they are due. Instead, everything goes towards the school and coaches. If these schools make so much money just from the sports, then what is wrong with compensating the athlete when they are doing the work? The average football coach makes an estimate of $4 million a year. Are they considered amateur coaches? No, it's their job, is what most people would say. Well, isn't playing the actual sport considered the player's job? And shouldn't you get paid for doing your job? The average basketball player is only supposed to work practice for 20 hours a week according to the NCAA. But the majority practice even longer. Who benefits from the player's hard work? When a team works so hard, they get into the championship. When a team does well, the coach prospers from them with more bonuses for the win. And the school tries to make as much profit off the players as they can. The solution to this problem would be to let the players get jobs. Why won't the schools allow them to get jobs? These players waking up at 5 in the morning, every morning, throughout the season, then go to school, sometimes missing classes for their team, and then go to practice after, and at the end of the day, have no money for themselves. Recently, a basketball player named Matt Stainbrook had to give up his scholarship to his brother. Then he had to quickly find a way to pay for his tuition. It was soon found out that he had been becoming a taxi driver to pay for school. If the NCAA would pay these athletes, they'd be less worried about the players getting into any kind of trouble or danger. A lot of the players come from families who have poor income and a family that can't afford to try to help the athlete. So even a small amount of money can make a huge impact on the player's life and their own life. Overall, the players are doing all this hard work and are getting nothing from their work. So why has compensation of the athlete become an issue if they are doing all the hard work and bringing in such a large revenue? When the team starts going on win streaks, they bring in even larger revenues. Players want to see their teams be successful, so they bring in even larger revenues in bowl games, championship games, etc. And players aren't seeing any part of the work they've accomplished. The colleges also franchise the players in video games, fan jerseys, and other accessories. And the players see none of this money. It all goes towards the school. But because the players have such a deep passion for their team, they keep playing when they don't get paid what they do. This really shows how committed some players are willing to go when they're willing to take their team all the way, knowing that they aren't going to get paid for any of it. You would think the schools would show the same respect and at least pay the boundaries. In the Bible, in 1 Corinthians 16:18, it states, "For they refreshed my spirits and yours also. Such men deserve recognition." So shouldn't we pay these men who refresh our spirits through such sports? They are recognized for their efforts, but they do not receive anything for their efforts to please us, when clearly they deserve the recognition. So why aren't the players at least seeing a fraction of the money that is spent to franchise the players, even if it's just a small amount to get them through the week? Colleges make more money than ever just in sports programs. These sports programs help the school benefit financially in many ways. Paying the athlete increases the chances the player will have to go pro in the future. Sports and academics take up the majority of the player's time, especially during the season. A small amount of money for the week can go a long way for the player. Paying these players will also help those who come from families with low income rates, so these small amounts can really go a long way in the end. Considering we have reached an agreement that athletes deserve payment, there of course will be regulations and boundaries for such payments. Some of these regulations would be that, for now, only men's football and basketball players should get paid for their efforts. Why only pay certain players, you might ask? These two sports bring in the largest revenues for these schools, and these schools and other athletic programs depend on these two sports. So because the two sports play such a huge part in the revenue of the school, only these athletes should get paid. That's just a start in the movement of paying college athletes. Another question you might ask is, how would we pay these student athletes? Two solutions are the Big Ten Plan Work Study Proposal or the SEC Game Plan Proposal. Former president of the NCAA, Miles Brandis, introduced the Work Study Proposal and suggested that they allocate the players and include about a $2,000 to $3,000 cost of living increase to full scholarship. Since athletes are only allowed to practice 20 hours of sports, then they should be paid 20 hours of work study or as a monthly stipend. This would provide athletes with income for clothing, laundry, sundries, travels, and other small item expenses. The SEC Gameplay Proposal suggests that $300 per game or $300 to $1,000 per game would seem fair. Since players play only about 30 minutes in a football game, they can be paid by the minute at about $20 per minute, $600 per game, $6,000 to $7,000 a season, which is very reasonable in payment for football players. You might say that it isn't right to pay these athletes because the colleges already pay for their college and usually provide living situations. But colleges aren't always paying for the full college experience. They do not always pay for everything. The majority of the time, they still expect the athlete to pay for over half of the college. Just because the college is partially paid for doesn't mean paying for the part of the college that isn't paid for will be easy to do. Since the college will not allow the player to get a job while an athlete, this means they will have to work even harder to pay off the rest of their debts they owe. If these athletes were paid, it would make up the difference that they need for daily living expenses and help pay for the rest of their college. So, paying these college athletes will solve the majority of their problems with money concerning future debt and being able to make it through the college experience with some money to help them do so. These student athletes struggle to go through school, then go to practice, and at the end of the day, have to worry about money to pay for food, transportation, and for the rest of their school that isn't paid for already. Imagine how much easier and how much less stress these student athletes will go through if they were paid. This is why I believe in equal payment for student athletes in college, because it is only fair and right towards the player putting in all this hard work.